over 60 do certain things every single day without thinking twice about them. You pour a second cup of coffee, sit in your favorite chair, stay up a little too late, maybe snack on something salty and tell yourself it is harmless because it feels normal. But what doctors and brain researchers have been warning about more urgently is this. Some of the most ordinary routines in your home may be quietly speeding up changes inside your brain. Not with pain, not with drama, with slow, silent loss in the very tissue that helps you remember names, stay steady on your feet, manage your mood, and remain independent. And the frightening part is that brain decline rarely announces itself early. It often shows up first as tiny lapses. Slower thinking, misplaced words, poor sleep, rising blood pressure, and moments of fog that many people dismiss as just getting older. By the time serious cognitive problems appear, years of damage may already be behind you. So stay with me because one of these habits is so common that millions still do it tonight. I am Dr. Edward Sinclair, and I'm going to show you the 5 daily habits that may be quietly shrinking your brain after 60, what to stop, what to change, and how to protect yourself starting today. Your brain does not usually fail all at once. It fades by degrees, and that is exactly why these habits are so dangerous. Picture a quiet evening at home. Dinner is done, the television is on. You sink into the couch, scroll a little, snack a little, promise yourself you will get to bed soon, and assume tomorrow will be the day you start being healthier. That scene feels harmless because it is ordinary, but here is what most people never realize. The brain is an energy-hungry organ, and it depends every hour on blood flow, oxygen, deep sleep, movement, and stimulation to repair itself and stay sharp. When those inputs are missing again and again, the brain does not simply get tired. It starts adapting downward. Connections are used less. Blood vessels stiffen. Inflammation lingers. Waste clearance slows. Memory circuits become less efficient. The part that makes this frightening is that these changes can begin long before a diagnosis ever appears. Many older adults notice small things first. A forgotten appointment. Trouble finding a word that used to come instantly. Walking into the kitchen and forgetting why, reading the same sentence twice, feeling mentally heavy in the afternoon and blaming age. But normal aging and avoidable decline are not the same thing. Studies from major public health organizations suggest that several common dementia risk factors are modifiable, which means your daily choices can push your brain in either direction. The World Health Organization warns that high blood pressure, physical inactivity, smoking, too much alcohol, depression, diabetes, obesity, and social isolation all raise dementia risk. In 2021, about 57 million people were living with dementia worldwide, and nearly 10 million new cases were added each year. That is not a small issue hiding at the edges of public health. It is one of the defining health threats of later life. And this is where the real danger begins. Most people think brain shrinkage is only about genetics or bad luck. They think if no one in the family had memory problems, they are safe. But brain health is shaped every day in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the living room, and at the dinner table. It is shaped when you keep skipping walks. It is shaped when you treat poor sleep like a personality trait. It is shaped when your blood pressure runs high for years without symptoms. It is shaped when a nightly drink becomes a ritual. It is shaped when entire days pass with almost no meaningful conversation or mental challenge. The good news is that fear is not the finish line here. Awareness changes outcomes. Once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. Once you understand what these habits are doing inside the brain, you can begin protecting what matters most: your memory, your independence, your confidence, and your future. But before we get to the 5 habits, you need to understand why the damage stays hidden for so long. Because that hidden mechanism is what makes everything else so alarming. As a doctor, I want to be careful and honest with you. Not every moment of forgetfulness means disease, and not every older adult with these habits will develop dementia. But medical experts have consistently warned that the brain does not age in isolation. It ages with your arteries, your sleep, your metabolism, your mood, and your daily routines. That is why the warning signs can look so ordinary at first. Picture yourself at the grocery store. You know the route, you know the list. But suddenly, the name of a familiar item slips away. Or you stand in the aisle feeling strangely foggy and a little slower than usual. Most people laugh it off. They say, "I'm just getting older." Sometimes that is partly true, but here is the part nobody talks about. Repeated brain stress often disguises itself as normal life until enough damage has accumulated to be seen. According to research highlighted by leading health institutions, adults who stay physically active are more likely to keep their minds sharp, and adults who sleep well, manage chronic illness, and stay socially connected tend to support healthier cognitive aging. The National Institute on Aging notes that adults should generally aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and federal guidelines recommend at least 150 minutes of physical activity each week. That is not random lifestyle advice. It reflects the basic maintenance schedule of a living brain. Then come the statistics that should make every viewer pause. The World Health Organization says Alzheimer's disease may account for 60 to 70% of dementia cases. Dementia is now one of the major causes of disability and dependency in older adults worldwide. The National Institute on Aging also reported that loneliness was linked to a 31% increased risk of dementia in a large analysis involving more than 600,000 participants. Think about that for a moment. Loneliness was not a vague emotional issue on the sidelines. It showed up as a brain health issue on a scale large enough for scientists to take very seriously. Blood pressure is another example. Decades of observational studies have shown that high blood pressure in midlife increases the risk of later cognitive decline. And in the SPRINT Mind study, people age 50 and older who lowered systolic blood pressure to under 120 millimeters of mercury reduced their risk of mild cognitive impairment over 5 years of treatment. Mild cognitive impairment is often the doorway many people enter before dementia. That means the numbers on a cuff in your doctor's office may be telling a story about your future memory. And alcohol is no minor detail either. The CDC warns that excessive alcohol use can contribute to high blood pressure, stroke, and memory problems, and says about 178,000 people die from excessive alcohol use each year in the United States. So when someone says, "It's just a drink to relax," that may be emotionally understandable, but medically it deserves a much closer look. I am telling you this not to scare you for the sake of fear, but to wake you up to how connected everything is. Your brain is not being judged by one dramatic event. It is being shaped by repeated signals, tiny decisions, and overlooked patterns. And once you understand the hidden root cause tying these habits together, the entire picture becomes impossible to ignore. The hidden root cause nobody talks about is not one villain. It is a slow combination of undernourishment, inflammation, and poor cleanup inside the brain. That sounds technical, so let me make it simple. Your brain is like a high-performance city that never truly sleeps. It needs clean roads, steady fuel, good drainage, and constant repair crews. When blood flow is reduced, when sleep is broken, when stress hormones stay elevated, when you sit too long, drink too often, or isolate for days at a time, the city still operates, but not well. Traffic backs up, trash removal slows, signals get delayed, repairs are postponed. And this is where the real danger begins. Many people imagine brain decline as something that appears suddenly after a stroke or a diagnosis. But much of the damage associated with cognitive decline builds quietly through years of small strain. Picture this. You wake up tired because you slept poorly. You grab something quick, maybe toast, cereal, or a packaged pastry. You sit for a long stretch. Lunch is salty and processed because it is easy. By late afternoon, you feel sluggish, so you move even less. In the evening, you pour a drink to unwind, then stay up with the television on. None of that feels dramatic. But stacked together, those choices can create a biological environment the brain does not like. Let me explain a few pieces of that. First, sleep. During healthy sleep, especially deeper stages, the brain is thought to do crucial maintenance work, including memory processing and clearing waste products. Poor sleep does not just leave you groggy. It may interfere with the brain's recovery systems. Second, circulation. The brain depends on a rich network of blood vessels. When blood pressure stays high or blood sugar swings wildly, those vessels can become damaged over time. Tiny vessel damage may not hurt, but it can reduce the quality of delivery to brain tissue. Third, inflammation. Diets heavy in ultra-processed foods, inactivity, chronic stress, and poor sleep can all contribute to a body environment that is more inflammatory than restorative. The brain feels that. Fourth, stimulation. Brain circuits strengthen when they are used. When life narrows into the same chair, the same room, the same routine, with very little movement, challenge, or conversation, the brain receives fewer signals that it needs to stay adaptable. Medical experts have consistently warned that brain health and heart health are deeply linked, and health professionals now pay much closer attention to sensory loss, isolation, mood, sleep quality, and metabolic health for exactly this reason. So if you have been waiting for a dramatic red flag, you may be waiting too long. The habit is the warning. The routine is the clue. The ordinary day is often where the damage begins. But the relief is this. The same daily pattern that slowly pushes the brain in the wrong direction can be reversed in meaningful ways when you start changing what your brain experiences every single day. And now it is time to get very specific, because the first two habits are far more common than most people are willing to admit. The first habit is treating bad sleep like it is no big deal. So many adults over 60 say the same thing. I just don't sleep like I used to. Sometimes that is true. Sleep can change with age, but constantly brushing off poor sleep is not harmless. Picture a typical night. You doze in the recliner, wake up, shuffle to bed late. The room is too warm. The television has been on. You wake at 2:30, then 4, then 5:15, and by morning you feel drained, but still tell yourself that is just how life works now. According to major health organizations, adults in later life generally still need around 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and sleep quality matters too. Poor sleep can affect attention, memory, mood, blood pressure, and everyday function. It can also be a warning sign for problems like sleep apnea, which deserves medical attention. Relief starts with basics that sound simple because they work. Keep a regular bedtime, cool and darken the bedroom, reduce late alcohol and heavy meals, cut off screens before bed, and talk with your clinician if snoring, gasping, or chronic insomnia are part of your life. The second habit is sitting for too many hours and calling it rest. Rest is healthy. Endless stillness is not. Think about a full day at home, breakfast at the table, news in the chair, car ride to the store, back home on the couch, then dinner and another long evening in the same position. That pattern can quietly starve the brain of one of its favorite medicines, movement. Research cited by major aging and brain health institutions suggests that physical activity supports blood flow, mood, balance, metabolism, and cognitive function. You do not need marathon training. A brisk walk, chair exercises, light resistance work, gardening, dancing in the kitchen, or several short walks through the day can begin shifting the biology in your favor. Mayo Clinic notes that if you cannot do a full workout, even a few 10-minute walks matter. And here is what most people never realize. Breaking up sitting time may matter even if you already exercise. In other words, one walk in the morning does not magically erase 10 hours of stillness. Your brain likes regular signals that the body is alive, upright, and engaged. If you are watching this and you know your sleep is poor or you spend too much of the day sitting, I want you to write the number 1 in the comments below, because I promise you are not alone in this. There is no shame here, only awareness. Start with one change tonight and one movement break tomorrow morning. That is how momentum begins. But as serious as sleep and inactivity are, the third habit may be the one doing the most silent damage of all, and it is hiding in plain sight in kitchens across the country. The third habit is letting your blood pressure stay high and acting as if no symptoms means no problem. This is the one I want you to take personally. You can feel fine while high blood pressure is quietly stressing the tiny vessels that feed your brain. Picture dinner at home. Canned soup, deli meat, crackers, a frozen entree, maybe a restaurant takeout meal the next night. Convenient, familiar, and often loaded with sodium. Add stress, poor sleep, missed walks, and inconsistent medication habits, and you have the perfect recipe for pressure that stays elevated year after year. The National Institute on Aging warns that decades of research link high blood pressure in midlife to later cognitive decline, and blood pressure control has been associated with lower risk of mild cognitive impairment. That means habit number 3 is not just about your heart. It is about protecting the very tissue that helps you think, plan, and remember. Relief begins with knowing your numbers, taking prescribed medication correctly, cutting back on ultra-salty processed foods, moving more, sleeping better, and speaking with your clinician before making major changes. Now for habit number 4, using alcohol as a nightly relaxer. This one is deeply normalized. A glass to take the edge off, another while watching television, a heavier pour because the day felt long. But aging changes how alcohol affects the body. Medical experts have consistently warned that alcohol can worsen sleep quality, raise blood pressure, increase fall risk, and contribute to memory problems. The CDC says excessive alcohol use is linked to stroke, high blood pressure, and long-term health damage. And here is the part many people do not realize. Alcohol can make poor sleep look like insomnia when the real problem is that it sedates first and disrupts later. You may fall asleep faster, but wake less restored. So if you depend on that nightcap, do not just ask, does it calm me down? Ask, what is it costing my brain by morning? Habit number 5 is quieter, but it may break your heart a little because it is so common after retirement, widowhood, hearing loss, or reduced mobility. Going through days with too little meaningful conversation, challenge, and connection. Loneliness and social isolation are not signs of weakness. They are human experiences, but they can become biological stressors. Imagine spending 2 or 3 days mostly alone, eating in silence, speaking only to a cashier, watching the clock, and repeating the same routine. The brain receives fewer emotional signals, fewer language demands, fewer reasons to stay flexible and alert. The answer is not perfection or becoming suddenly busy every hour. The answer is deliberate connection. A phone call, a walk with a neighbor, church, volunteering, a class, a game, reading aloud, learning something new, even regular video calls with family. Your brain is always listening for evidence that life is still asking something of it. And what I am about to tell you next may be the most important part of this entire message, because once you understand that, you stop feeling helpless and start feeling powerful. You have heard the 5 habits now, and I do not want you leaving this with panic. I want you leaving with clarity. Poor sleep, too much sitting, unchecked blood pressure, nightly alcohol, and quiet isolation do not mean your future is doomed. They mean your brain has been sending signals, and now you know how to read them. That matters. Because knowledge turns vague fear into action, and action is where hope lives. You do not need to fix your entire life by tonight. You need to choose the next right step. Maybe that step is setting a real bedtime. Maybe it is standing up every hour tomorrow. Maybe it is checking your blood pressure this week, cutting back on salty convenience food, or having an honest conversation about your drinking. Maybe it is calling someone you miss and refusing another day of silence. Small changes sound small until they are repeated, and repeated actions are exactly what built the problem in the first place. They can also build the solution. I share this with you because I genuinely want you to be here, healthy, steady, clear-minded, and fully yourself, for the people who love you and for the life you still want to live. Your brain is not asking for perfection. It is asking for protection, consistency, and care. If this helped you today, share it with someone you love. And if you want more honest, simple guidance like this, stay with us. I am Dr. Edward Sinclair, and we will be here every step of the way.